In the dim, flickering glow of a subway car rattling through the underbelly of New York City at midnight, a single tear traced a silent path down the cheek of a woman who had long forgotten what hope felt like. Her name was Mia Reynolds, and cradled in her arms was little Elias, her 9-month-old son, whose tiny chest rose and fell in the rhythm of exhausted dreams. The train lurched violently around a curve, and in that split second of chaos, Mia's head, too heavy from days without sleep, dropped onto the shoulder of the man beside her. A man who commanded boardrooms and billions, but in that moment, felt the weight of a stranger's world crash into his own. Alexander Hale, CEO of Hale Enterprises, froze. His tailored Armani suit, worth more than Mia's entire wardrobe, was now a pillow for despair he never asked for. But as her soft, uneven breaths warmed his neck, something unbreakable stirred in the fortress of his heart, a crack that would shatter his life wide open. Alexander Hale was the kind of man who measured success in stock tickers and skyscrapers. At 42, he had built an empire from the ashes of his father's failed dreams, turning a modest tech startup into a global juggernaut that powered half the world's smartphones. His days were a blur of mergers, media spots, and martinis with politicians who smiled like sharks. Nights? They blurred into the sterile luxury of his penthouse overlooking Central Park, where the city lights mocked his solitude. Alexander had no family, no friends beyond sycophants. His wife, Elena, had left him a decade ago, taking their unborn child with her in a haze of grief after a miscarriage that neither could survive. "You're married to your work, Alex," she'd whispered on her way out the door. "It'll keep you warm at night." It hadn't. It had only made him colder. That midnight subway ride was a rare lapse in his armored routine. His driver had called in sick, some flu sweeping the city, and Alexander, ever the control freak, refused a cab in the pouring rain. "I'll take the train like everyone else," he'd grumbled to his reflection in the elevator mirror, adjusting his silk tie as if it were a suit of armor. The car was packed. Weary night shift workers, college kids nursing hangovers, a homeless man muttering to ghosts. Alexander stood, gripping the overhead rail, his mind replaying the day's conquest, a hostile takeover sealed with a handshake that felt like betrayal. Then came Mia. She had boarded 3 stops earlier, a ghost in oversized thrift store clothes that hung off her slender frame like regrets. Her dark hair, once lustrous, was now a tangled cascade pulled into a hasty ponytail. Elias, bundled in a threadbare blanket, fussed softly against her chest, his cheeks flushed from the chill seeping through the train's thin walls. Mia's eyes, hazel pools dulled by fatigue, scanned for a seat, but the only spot was a sliver next to a businessman who reeked of cologne and contempt. She sank down, whispering lullabies to Elias that cracked like old vinyl. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." But there was no mockingbird, no tomorrow's promise. Just the gnawing ache in her belly from skipping dinner to buy formula. Mia's story was the kind that newspapers romanticize but rarely fix. Born in a Rust Belt town in Ohio, she'd dreamed of Broadway lights and big city love. At 18, she fled to New York with a duffel bag and a scholarship to NYU's theater program. That's where she met Jake, charismatic, tattooed, with eyes like storm clouds and promises like thunder. He swept her off her feet in a whirlwind of rooftop kisses and whispered forever s. But forever lasted until the pregnancy test turned positive. Jake vanished like smoke, leaving Mia with eviction notices and a swelling belly. Elias arrived on a sweltering July night in a cramped Brooklyn walk-up, his first cry echoing off peeling wallpaper. Mia dropped out of school, picked up shifts as a barista by day and waitress by night, her dreams dissolving into dishwater and diaper changes. The challenges piled up like unpaid bills. Rent was a monthly guillotine, hovering at $1,800 for a one-bedroom that smelled of mold and neighbors' arguments. Childcare? A patchwork of favors from an overstretched aunt who worked doubles herself. Mia's body betrayed her too, postpartum depression wrapped around her heart like barbed wire, turning every smile into an effort, every night into a battlefield against shadows. "You're stronger than this," she'd tell her reflection, but the mirror lied. Last week, Elias had spiked a fever, landing them in the ER with a bill that loomed like a death sentence. Medicaid covered the basics, but the extras, like the pediatrician's stern warning about nutrition, were luxuries Mia couldn't afford. She was drowning, and the world above water didn't even notice the bubbles. As the train rattled on, Mia's eyelids grew leaden. Elias had finally nursed to sleep, his tiny fist clutching her shirt like a lifeline. The exhaustion hit like a wave, pulling her under. Her head lolled sideways, landing softly on Alexander's shoulder. He stiffened, a jolt of irritation sparking through him. Who does she think she is? His mind raced, visions of lawsuits, of her waking up accusatory, of his pristine reputation smeared by a viral subway video. He shifted subtly, trying to dislodge her without waking the child. But then he felt it, the feather-light weight of her cheek against his lapel, the faint scent of lavender soap mingled with baby powder and something deeper, like rain-soaked earth after a storm. Her breath hitched in sleep, a soft sob escaping as if even dreams wouldn't grant her peace. Alexander glanced down. Elias's face was angelic in repose, lashes fanning like dark wings, a tiny thumb tucked in his mouth. Mia's features softened in vulnerability, high cheekbones smudged with yesterday's mascara, lips parted in silent plea. For the first time in years, Alexander didn't pull away. Instead, he found himself steadying her, his arm hovering protectively until it settled around her shoulders. The train's hum became a lullaby, the fluorescent lights a reluctant halo. 2 stops passed in that suspended moment, the city's chaos fading to a distant roar. When Mia stirred, her eyes fluttered open, locking onto his with the wide-eyed panic of a deer in headlights. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," she gasped, jerking upright, Elias whimpering in protest. Her hands flew to her mouth, cheeks burning crimson. "I didn't mean, I haven't slept in days. Please, Alexander raised a hand, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "It's fine. Really." He met her gaze, those hazel eyes now sharp with embarrassment and something fiercer, defiance. "Rough night?" She laughed, a brittle sound that shattered the air. "Every night's rough when you're one late shift from the street." Elias fussed louder, and Mia rocked him instinctively, murmuring apologies to both mother and child. The train doors hissed open at her stop, Brooklyn Bridge, a portal to her world of grit and grind. She stood, gathering her worn tote bag that bulged with diapers and dreams deferred. "Thanks for not shoving me off." Most would. As she turned to leave, Alexander's hand shot out, slipping a business card into her pocket, a crisp white rectangle etched with gold lettering, Alexander Hale, CEO, Hale Enterprises. "If you ever need anything. Coffee, a job lead. Call." It was an impulse, born of that inexplicable warmth on his shoulder. Mia paused, fingering the card like it was fool's gold. "Why would you?" "Because sometimes," he said, the words surprising even him, "the world needs a reminder it's not all concrete and contracts." She nodded, a ghost of a smile flickering before vanishing into the platform crowd. Alexander watched her go, the train doors sealing like a vault. He touched his shoulder where her head had rested, as if the imprint might linger like a bruise. Back in his penthouse, sleep evaded him. He poured scotch, neat, and stared at the skyline, replaying the encounter. Who was she? By dawn, curiosity had morphed into compulsion. He called his assistant, a no-nonsense woman named Lydia who'd been with him since the startup days. Run a facial recognition on subway cams from last night. Woman, mid-20s, with a baby. Around midnight on the F line. Lydia paused, her voice crackling with rare judgment. "Alex, that's not just unethical, it's creepy. What's gotten into you?" "Just do it," he snapped, then softer, "please." By noon, he had a name, Mia Reynolds. A dossier followed, NYU dropout, single mother, eviction filings from 6 months ago, ER visits for the kid. It read like a tragedy in bullet points, each one a punch to Alexander's gut. He shouldn't care. He had a board meeting in an hour, a yacht christening tomorrow. But the image of her tear-streaked face haunted him, echoing Elena's final goodbye. "You're alone because you choose to be," his ex's voice whispered in his memory. Fate, or perhaps Alexander's uncharacteristic meddling, intervened 2 days later,